Landlords are exiting the real estate market at a concerning pace and record numbers, and it's tenants that are paying the price. Thought to be a huge win for tenants, rules that were introduced on August 21st of 2024 put the final straw on the camel's back that is going to break the residential tenancy market for investors who rent their homes out to people like you. On top of many other unfavorable residential tenancy rules introduced over the last few years, landlords just simply saw the writing on the wall and have been selling their rental units in shocking numbers. If the government doesn't fix the very problem that they themselves created, our entire rental ecosystem is in for a very sober awakening. And if this trend continues, the rental market and the rental stock will continue to shrink even further, driving rents sky high and leaving many tenants without a place to go. Me and my team have been selling residential real estate since 2007 in Surrey, White Rock, the surrounding municipalities, and have helped many landlords over the years find a property that they were excited to own. They were excited to own it for a variety of reasons. One is clearly they're trying to build their personal wealth through real estate, but many of them were also excited to be offering out a property to people who needed to rent. These might be people who couldn't afford to buy a home at that particular time or stage in their lives, or maybe it just wasn't convenient for them to own property at that time. But nonetheless, it was a win-win situation. You had someone being able to grow their personal wealth and somebody who had a safe and secure roof over their head. Over the last few years, however, I've noticed a steady decline, not only in the amount of people that are actually buying rental properties as investments, but also even just generally the amount of people that are inquiring about them. Hearing similar comments again and again from these groups of people that it's just not worth it anymore. In fact, over the last few years, we have sold the majority of our clients out of their rental portfolios, however big they may be, 1 unit, 2 units. But the interesting thing about those people is none of them have asked about either getting back into the market or taken on new rentals as investments. This is obviously a really concerning trend, so it made me get a little bit curious. But before I tell you why what is actually happening is so shocking, let me tell you a little bit about why this is happening in the first place. Following an absolutely embarrassing episode by our provincial government where they clearly did no consultation with the industry in relation to home purchasing or the problems that what they were about to do might create for absolutely everybody, the provincial government of British Columbia introduced a 4-month notice period requiring landlords who want to sell their rental properties to whoever may want to buy them. Well, they had to give the tenant of that property a 4-month notice period to vacate. And the idea behind this was to give the tenant more time to go find alternate arrangements to live in, which was a noble idea in its own right. But this has a spin-off of problems included with it, not just for the people, the landlords looking to sell their units, but also for the tenants that are living in them. But the change presented some headaches for homebuyers, particularly first-time homebuyers or anybody who didn't have a down payment of greater than 20%, which is many. These types of buyers do something what's called high-ratio financing, meaning they have to take out additional insurance to protect the bank on their loan from companies like the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which requires a property to be vacant upon possession if they're going to make use of this program. If you're a first-time homebuyer or a homebuyer generally making use of the CMHC program, well, that doesn't allow you to inherit a tenant. The property needs to be vacant. So, okay, you have to get vacant possession, but how are you supposed to have vacant possession when a tenant has a minimum of a full 4 months notice before they have to leave the property? That presents a few more interesting problems, but before I dive into those, if you are a first-time buyer or a home buyer generally looking to buy in the Surrey, White Rock, or surrounding municipalities, you can book a time below in the description to speak with me and my team, or grab a copy of our download 21 grants and incentives for home buyers and homeowners. One of the other problems that was created with this 4-month notice period was that typically a home buyer gets a rate hold when they're pre-approved with a bank, and those rate holds can last anywhere from 90 to 120 days. Now, by requiring a landlord, and thus the person buying the home, requiring them to give 4 months notice to that tenant means that you're going to have buyers making offers who don't even have an effective rate hold by the time it comes comes to close on the property, which is incredibly risky and just a terrible, terrible idea. So after massive pushback by not only the real estate industry, but the mortgage industry and other groups that represent people purchasing homes, the government, within a very short period of time, changed the 4-month notice down to 3, which is still up 1 month from the original 2 before this whole debacle began. This was clearly enough for landlords, and they were going to start doing something about it. On top of other regulations that have been brought in over the course of the last few years, where things like fixed tenancies really aren't a thing anymore because they automatically renew on a month-to-month basis. We're eliminating the ability to adjust rents to things like increases in mortgage rates, increases in inflation, increases in property taxes, general expenses, anything like that. Profit margins were shrinking to nil, and landlords, well, they just started to hang up the gloves. And this just isn't opinion on what is happening. I'm going to show you some numbers right now that's going to back this up. From January 1st of 2024 to August 31st of 2024, in comparison to the remainder of condos and townhomes sold, generally speaking, that were either vacant or owner occupied, was about 6.93%. This means that roughly about 7 for every 100 properties that was sold during this time frame were tenant occupied properties. Now, from September 1st to the end of 2024, this number skyrocketed up to 10.7%. That's roughly 11 properties out of every 100 selling were tenant occupied properties. That is a massive increase when you're looking at such a large subset of data. And the only thing to really explain this away is the changes that happened on August 21st of the same year. But there's more to this story as well. Landlords, well, they're having to, generally speaking, sell their properties for less and are taking more time to do so. For the same type of properties from January to August, tenanted properties were selling for an average of about $14,000 off the asking price and were remaining on the market for about 36 days until they achieved a sale. Over the time period between September to December, after the new rules took effect, landlords were now selling their properties for an average of $18,000 below the asking price, and those same properties were sitting on the market for an average of about 46 days before they were selling. So the properties are sitting on the market for longer periods, and they're also selling for less money. So there's a few questions that arise from concerning data just like this. The first question is it right, is it fair, or is it even a smart idea to be putting landlords at such a significant disadvantage? These are the people who are providing rental space to people who need it. They can't afford it, or maybe they're choosing not to buy, whatever the reason may be. These are people who are providing space. Is this the right thing to do? The second question, if these same landlords are exiting the rental market, thus selling off the rental stock that is available, well, who is filling that space? Who is adding those same rental units back to the market? And here's where the problem lies, is less rental options mean more competition for tenants, unfortunately equals higher rents because the market will allow for it. And this isn't really the complete story of everything that needs to be taken into account about why landlords are exiting the market so fast and in such large numbers. I briefly touched on other factors at play, and in the video coming up next, I break down all of these factors in totality so you can see the impact on landlords and why so many are choosing to exit the market. This one's going to absolutely blow you away, and it's coming up next, so I'll see you over there. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you on the next video. Cheers.